Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this coffee break session. Session number one, we're going to talk technician turnover. A couple of quick items of housekeeping before we dive in. Everyone's on mute. That's not because we don't want to hear from you, because in fact we really do. We want to hear those questions in the questions section of the GoToWebinar control panel. You'll find that on the right-hand side. Go ahead and open up questions, type those in, and ask them as we go along. If you're having any kind of audio or video issues, also please speak up there in the question section. We've done enough of these that we generally can troubleshoot just about any problem in there. And the number one question we always get, yes, this session is being recorded. So today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about technician turnover. The struggle really is real, and we're going to give you a couple of top 3 quick tips on the way to address that, and we'll make sure to leave some time for Q&A. I'm Dave Sobel. I am the Senior Director of MSP Evangelism here at SolarWinds. My job is to make sure you're getting some of the best education out there, understand what's going on in the market, and advocate for you here in the organization. The only thing anybody ever cares about is I was an MSP too, ran an MSP for about a decade, and so really understand where you've been. So I'd like to introduce the man with the coffee today who's serving the knowledge, Mr. Colin Knox. Colin is our Director of Product Strategy and the founder of Passportal, and he's also worked in 3 MSPs before founding his own. Colin, welcome to Coffee Break.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Great to be here. I got my hot and piping coffee next to me for the nice bright and early session today. You got yours?
Too. Me too. We're
good,
both here in DC today, so let's talk turnover technician.
Yeah, sounds good. So let me get this going. So, I mean, it is the challenge, right? It doesn't matter really what industry people are in, not just technicians or IT or anything, but turnover is a real struggle. And when you think about it within an MSP and the SMB and the focus of being such a service business, it's amazing how much impact this can have on an MSP. When you think about, you know, the amount of knowledge that these technicians have of the clients, the relationships that they have on clients, the intricacies and complexities of every client's network, and the amount of training and informing and time that it takes to get a technician up to speed, that it's so critical that we find a way to retain these people. And you know,
it's painful when somebody leaves. It's really
it sure is. I remember running my MSP and the same thing, right? You struggled to find the right people to join your company, and you convinced them finally to join, and you got them up and running. One of the biggest fears I always had was them leaving. And so hitting on this, and we hear it from our partners all the time, is how can you guys help me, and what can you tell me, and what tips do you have on how to keep people? So let's find out how much people are leaving. We've got a poll for you guys. How many technicians exit your MSP each year? Let's get a sense of what the turnover rate is. This isn't a bad thing. It'll go up, but the bigger you go. So you know, the more staff you've got, the more likely they are to turn over. Yeah, the percentages typically stand fairly consistent, and it's not necessarily the size of the business, but at some point, everybody's gonna see somebody leave the organization, whether they're moving away, whether they're just changing jobs, whether they've, you know, decided to make a change with their family, who knows? There's a bunch of real reasons why, and what we're here to hopefully do and help is mitigate those times where somebody leaves just because of pure unhappiness with the business or what they're doing.
So it's pretty. We got a pretty clear split here, Colin. 60% are losing between sort of 0 and 2, and 40% are losing between 2 and 5. So it's kind of what we might expect a breakdown to look like.
Absolutely. So let's dig in on some quick tips here. So the first one that people hear over and over is invest in your staff. And a lot of MSPs come to us and speak to us and say, well, what does that mean? You know, how can I invest in the staff? And it's, you know, on one hand, I guess the easy one is better salary, because there are a bunch of people who, in the fluctuations of economy and changes in their life situations, just having more pay helps. But then it starts to come into the things of where you can really invest in them beyond just giving them money, right? And it's the benefits of advancing them in their careers. So training and IT skill advancement. So setting them up for training and certifications through whatever technologies, selfishly, in many cases, that you support and manage in your business. So if you're a Microsoft shop, getting them trained through the Microsoft server stack, getting them trained through the solutions, their cloud solution stack in Azure, Azure AD, Office 365, training them on the firewall solution of choice for your organization, just paying to train them to better their own skills and help them feel that they're growing in their career, because a lot of times employees will leave due to lack of growth opportunities or feeling like their career isn't advancing somewhere. So yeah, go ahead, man.
For as much as people are always talking about the difficulty in finding people, you got to be careful on not under investing here, because if it's that difficult, you want to make sure that you're keeping the good ones that you've got, investing in them to make them better, and that'll keep them engaged.
Absolutely. So something we did in our MSP, and I think we've talked about this before, Dave, is we had a $5,000 a year education grant that we would offer to each employee. So for them to cover the costs of online course material, sometimes the 1 week event type courses that they would do, pay for tests, bonus them on certifications, things like that. And there were these other intangible benefits that we got on our side of being able to market a highly certified staff, faster ticket resolutions, just betterment and better support and connection with our vendor partners that we were dealing with, getting quicker access to the higher tier support lines with them.
Right.
That's something we did. And overall, it may sound like a large investment, but over the year, you know what, it's not crazy. It's something to have there as incentive. And, there's that famous LinkedIn meme that goes around of saying, like, what happens if I pay for my staff to take all this training and I pay to train my staff and then they leave? Well, what happens if you don't and they stay, right? You want to have quality people. The people in your company is actually what you're selling to all of your clients, is their abilities, their skills, and their know-how. So.
Yep, and remember that your number one expense in an MSP business is your staff. That's your most valuable asset. So you really do need to think about, like, how do I retain this? That's got to be an active part of your planning.
Absolutely. So you've got in-house training, external conferences. I mean, there's a plethora of conferences in our space. And then just a bunch of benefits to the staff. Again, we bonus them based on completing certifications and really leverage that in our business marketing and sales, and helping to differentiate ourselves versus other companies that we're contacting our clients.
Yeah, totally.
So, I mean, and when you think about it, this goes back to the whole thing of what happens when your techs and your key technicians aren't available, right? You need to give people vacation. That's another way to actually help retain people, is to make sure that they're using their PTO. Giving them vacation time, making sure that they use it, getting out of the office, they can recharge. So, what happens to your company when one of your techs is on vacation or out of the office, has an appointment, and even, worst case scenario, leaves the company? And when you think about how you're securely storing and managing and taking care of and even sharing and utilizing all the valuable and sensitive client knowledge and information and on our side, credentials as well, you start to recognize that benefit in having people and being able to retain those people, but at the same time, empowering those people to make sure that they have the tools and systems available to share that knowledge, so that when they are out of the office, when they do go on vacation, that the company can continue going on. Because at the same time, coming back from a vacation and seeing a bunch of work piled up and stressed out clients and stressed out coworkers kind of eradicates that entire feeling of recharge and rejuvenation and refreshment that somebody gets on vacation.
Well, and doing this well is a really good benefit. Like, I'm a big proponent of that kind of work-life balance and really working towards that. Investing in doing this well, making sure that you're never interrupting somebody when they have their time off, they can do it, and then they can come back and just come back into the flow of things. That's actually a benefit. Like, it's not just good for the organization; it's good for your team, because then they can know like, hey, I'm part of a team. I have people backing me up. And I can take time off, or heaven forbid something happens to their family and they need a little bit of time. They know that everything is well organized.
Absolutely. You need to, and you should want to respect that. So thinking about when people go away, thinking about if employees leave the organization, we'll open up another poll here. Is how do you, inside your MSP, share the knowledge across all of your technicians and team? There's a lot of options, obviously centralized software, and there's a variety of different softwares. We do CLC and hear about people that are using sticky notes and notepads, Excel spreadsheets, just verbal communication, relying on the memory of the technician.
And we're not sharing the results, so everyone can be honest and give us a good perspective here. It's okay. You're in a safe space to talk about it.
We're all friends here.
We're all friends here. It's all good because we want to know. We want to get a sense of what's really going on out there.
Yeah, and it just goes back to, Dave and I ran MSPs. We knew what we did in the organization. We knew what follies we had and kind of what things we would have preferred to hide from our clients,
right.
knowing in some cases, right?
The skeletons in the closet are a real thing. But Colin, we've got a good group of people with coffee this morning. Nobody said they're using sticky notes or notepads. So kudos to everybody out there.
I applaud that.
You guys are doing good. It's about a split though, 60% with that centralized software and 40% with verbal communication. So
yeah.
That's healthy. It's going up in the right direction, but we want to make sure verbal's rough. It's hard, and that's that area where things can get lost.
Yeah,
a tight team
really
can do it, but it's hard.
It really is, and when you think about it, one of the actual leading reasons for turnover is people feeling that they don't have, in many cases, the right tools to do their jobs. That can come down to, believe it or not, the chair that they sit in at their desk all day, down to the software that they use to perform their duties, or in some cases, the lack of software that they have to perform their duties, and many manual processes and procedures that just really enforce more stress for them and the inability to be efficient in their jobs. So, enforcing standardization across the board helps people. So on one hand, it keeps everybody on an even keel of using the same tools, using the same solutions, doing the same actions, following the same rules. And so within an MSP, there's ways that you can do standardization. And we've had another webinar, if you want to go back through our resource libraries and find when we talked a lot about standardization and technician efficiency. But one of the keys in this is sharing knowledge and not relying on one person as a potential single point of failure and single knowledge house to then communicate to other people on an on-demand and as-needed basis, and being able to share this through a solution. So, doing the in-house staff training, making sure everybody is up to speed on all of your processes, procedures, your protocols, what tools you use, making sure that people are properly trained on the tools you use, and then utilizing a centralized software for all of your client network systems and knowledge and passwords and documentation, so that you really can manage in this single source of truth the ability for technicians to gain a mind share across all of the clients.
And I would be remiss if I did not, the academic MSP nerd in me didn't raise his hand and say, we find in the best-in-class MSPs, the ones that are highest performing and doing the best from a profitability perspective, they focus more on standardization. So it's everything that we're talking about here, from service delivery to completion times to an end for the end users, but it's also good for your bottom line. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring that up.
Hey, how many times, Dave, have we said over the last week that it's no longer about the coolness or the technical or the feature, it's about the business outcome?
It's totally true.
And that's in your business as an MSP, focus on your business outcome. And when you're selling and speaking to clients, it's focusing on the business outcome for the clients. It's not about just what you're doing, it's about what their business actually gets out of that. And that's not always just a faster service. A faster service leads to more productive employees, less downtime for employees, less risk of loss of business to their business. So, doing all these things, it really is a win-win-win. right? For you guys, you get a quicker service delivery, you get a gain in capacity by sharing the stuff. There's no more time wasted by these expensive employees and technicians that you're employing of just searching for information or calling and finding who that one person is to ask the question that knows the answer, right? And the customer gets the win because their stuff is fixed faster. They get back to work quicker. They're not sitting waiting around for things. And you know, on the end user side, they feel more productive, they feel empowered, and even your end clients or your customers see less turnover because their users feel empowered.
Exactly.
So it's a win all around.
So this is funny because, you know, you've got to really think about the way people work, and if you're investing in knowledge, you know, people won't work around you. But I mean, Colin, I'm sure you've got a tons of areas where technicians will work around the things they don't know.
Well, and not even just the things they don't know, in many cases, the things they don't like, right? So when you think about it, if somebody doesn't like relying on somebody else or feels the stress that they're in a hot seat at a client site or with a client on the phone, and they're scrambling to get a hold of another person to figure out information, typically what happens when that person gives that information is it gets jotted down in their notebook beside them or in a notepad document or an Excel spreadsheet. And then you start having this vast growing footprint of where all of this knowledge and privileged information starts to go. And you have things that happen, or if somebody just comes in and types in the password to get it, the technician in, and the technician feels like, hey, I might need to get back in here, they may create a backdoor that's not necessarily malicious at the time, but creating a new domain admin user account for them to be able to log in later and have the password, and that doesn't get tracked, but it's noted somewhere. And it becomes very difficult if we don't empower our technicians with the right knowledge and the right access to that knowledge, that things become very dangerous. And even if on the outset it's not malicious, it can quickly turn that way, whether the technician goes rogue or that information that you don't know about falls into the wrong hands through somebody discovering it through another medium. So, you know, it's making sure that you empower your employees and finding the right ways to outfit them with the right tools so that you can trust them and trust the processes that are in place.
Well, the funny thing about that is the smarter your techs are, the more clever they're going to get about ways to go around the problem. So,
oh, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
The better your team is, the more clever, the more you have this problem in a way. And so it's funny how that happens because, you know, you really do that investment in helping them and making sure that they're standardized and working well. Actually, like, it works on both ends. It's not just that perception that it might be sloppy techs. It's also really good ones that do it.
Well, and you know what? I think people have a lot of confidence in themselves. And so as the employers, we need to trust those people, but and have confidence in them to be able to deliver the skills, but also the trust that things are going to get done the right way. As technicians, we're very averse to always following every step. There's a lot of shortcuts that happen in IT, and it happens all the time. And so helping to instill the solutions and the tools in place that help them along that process and make sure that they're following it on a regular basis for consistency and standardization is very key. And it's just having the confidence that when it comes out to documenting a client network so that that knowledge can be passed on to another technician or other members of the team, that they know what fields to be done, and not just expecting them to know what needs to be filled out and to have, but to outfit them with a form that has all of the fields and the template of what needs to be captured.
Are you saying, Colin, sometimes techs don't read the manual? I'm shocked. Shocked, I say.
Yeah, we're as technician and technical people, we're a little bit confident, and then sometimes overconfident. We want to prove that we can do this without reading the manual, right?
Right, exactly.
We know we can find our way around, and we like choose your own adventure. But you know, let's jump into quick tip 3 is your internal risk mitigation of how to manage exiting employees. So, you know, there's a lot of concepts out there. And working through things. So I'm going to kind of jump down the list first and start with this zero trust model and zero trust security. And this is a topic and a concept that's been in place in the enterprise and mid-market for some time now. And you know, we've been looking into it, you know, at Passportal and SolarWinds Passportal now. And SolarWinds is a great organization, operates in a zero trust security model as well. And so talking that and starting to hear that more down the MSP path is that, you know, it comes down to not having an inherent trust for anyone or anything or any access within your system, and always having multiple paths of confirmation and verification and validation of who is performing an action, and are they authorized to perform an action, and are they coming in from an authorized path. So you're not trusting the path and the location that they're coming in from, the tool that they're using to connect in, or that it is necessarily the person just inherently that's trying to do that work. And that's a very key thing, because when you operate in a zero trust model, it means that at the end of the day, you actually don't have to trust everybody. You can employ and have great people working and reduce and mitigate that risk internally of people performing actions that are outside of their purview.
And it's important to know a little bit what we mean by that zero trust. Like, that doesn't mean that I don't believe in my people or understand their capabilities. What it means is, from a systems perspective, we're just making sure that none of the systems explicitly just trust the users that are interacting with them. You know, Colin, I know you and I both work remotely at times. You know, it's just a system, an element of the system just makes sure that every single time I do authenticate against, you know, to make sure that I am who I say I am. And it's not a bad thing. It's making sure that, in fact, I'm only able to get to the things that I am explicitly been granted access to,
Oh yeah,
not just the blanket trust.
and as much as we trust our people, other solutions that they use may not be trustworthy, and other systems where they input their own email addresses and passwords. Look at the growing popularity of the dark web and the lists of compromised credentials for sale on the dark web. And that's not because our employees haven't been prudent in their passwords, but that various solutions have been prone to attack and compromise and maybe not stored things in proper ways. And now those credentials are out on the dark web and available for people to pull in and start trying and hacking against solutions like Office 365 or other line of business and popular applications online.
And I'll tell you, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't highlight, because we should say this every single time, you should ensure that 2FA is turned on every one of your MSP systems. In fact, it should, if you are unsure, it should be the first thing you do today.
For every user.
For every user, blanket, and no shared user accounts, because this is critical to protecting the keys to the castle.
Absolutely, absolutely. That will bite you at some point. Just last week, there was a notice of an MSP that got attacked, and they had one user who wasn't enabled for MFA on one of their systems, and it took everything else down. So talking about some more internal risk mitigation. So you have the zero trust, you have the MFA, you have processes, procedures in place for that. The next thing is just doing your due diligence, making sure that you're maintaining with a good, proper hygiene of setting granular access control for technicians of who can access what, who can do and take which actions with what information and which credentials or data, and then following and managing the audit trails of all of that. So you're monitoring the activity that can happen, and when the technicians even know that they're working in an audited system, that drives inherent accountability and attention to what they're doing if they know that things can be tracked, right? Yep. Just like everybody else driving down the road, we like to maybe speed sometimes, go for the speed limit. When we know and get that alert on our Waze or whatever other system we're using that there's a speed trap up ahead, we know we're being watched, we drop that speed down. It's just the knowledge that things are being watched and monitored or could be checked up on that makes people fall in line and adhere to the governance and procedures that we've set forth.
Yep. So I did want to remind everybody before we run out of time and run out of coffee this morning, we are taking questions. If you've got questions, go ahead and put those into the Q&A section there, because you can dive into this lively conversation with your own questions and let us know what you want to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last item on here, password change automation, right? Leveraging automated tools speeds up your efficiency, mitigates your risk. If you're frequently rotating credentials, there's less risk of those credentials walking out the door with an employee, right? And you're mitigating the risk for you and for all of your clients that way by just managing a constant rotation of all the credentials.
It's important, and I know, you know, doing it from an automated perspective makes it way more efficient. But obviously, you know, if you haven't invested in that, make sure you're figuring out how you're doing that.
Absolutely. So while we wait for some questions to flow in, I know we've got 5 minutes left here. You know, a lot of the premise of what led to the genesis and creation of Passportal was technician turnover. You know, I ran an MSP. We received our first resignation from a technician, recognized the you know, holy shoot moment of, we've got all of these credentials that this person knows, all of this key information about our clients that this person knows. In some cases, we didn't know that key information about our clients, but we did have the password stored in a trusty spreadsheet, which is what a lot of MSPs have done. And we went out looking for a solution to mitigate that risk, to be able to manage and control the access, have the audited controls and reporting on who done what, and then be able to leverage and build the automation of going out and rotating all the credentials across our clients, finding all the services and tasks across the networks that use those credentials, and automatically updating the configuration of them. You know, building in the standardized knowledge capture and knowledge sharing system with our documentation manager, and really pulling and tying all this information together so that your technicians can be more efficient and more effective under a guided solution.
So Colin, we got a question come in. I think this is a good one that we want to talk about. What's your best tip for retaining people? Like the one thing that you felt like was almost the most effective if they started there.
All right. I've got a golden nugget. So hopefully everybody's got their fingers ready on the keyboard and stuff. So we actually joke about this at SolarWinds now because a bunch of people found out that I did this in my MSP. But my number one thing, when I had a key employee who gained a level of trust and then I felt would be more valuable to me in the business than out of the business, meaning if this person went to my competitor, if this person left, where would I be at? We actually bought them a car. And that sounds funny and whatnot, but when you think about it, that cost wasn't outrageous. We were paying for mileage for our technicians and our consultants to drive around and visit client spaces and have quarterly business reviews and whatnot. And we also wanted to deliver an element of an upper echelon of service, right? So what would happen is, you know, we bought the first couple of people vehicles and we leased them. So it was a business expense. Everything was fine that way. We did the registry. It was all safe and fine. But we bought BMWs for our people. And so that way when they showed up on site, it was a quality person showing up, dressed business dress. The whole appearance and selling of the perception of the quality of our service was there. But at the same time, we now had employees that were driving luxury vehicles that they liked, they loved. It was handy for them. They got to use it in their regular everyday life. And it became one of those sticky things that if something wasn't great for them or they were, you know, thinking about leaving, then it was thinking about the cost of replacing the car. It was thinking about, you know, having to maybe go and take a step down to a different type of vehicle, because a lot of the people, we paid them well, but they wouldn't be buying themselves a BMW, right? So the cost of the business overall wasn't crazy. I think it ended up being about maybe $500 more a month on average compared to the mileage we were already paying. And they got this vehicle. It was very sticky. It actually forced the other people that saw this to elevate their own game so that they could actually get up to a point of getting a vehicle as well. So that was actually our number one tip. And by doing that, we actually only lost 2 employees over 7 years operating that business. So that was our number one sticky tactic.
That's a good one. Well, mine isn't a car, so clearly I should have worked for you. But in my business, we actually employed the model of we hired slow and we fired fast was always our thinking. And and what we did there was actually we made sure the interview process was pretty careful, but our favorite thing was somebody that we really liked. We would actually ask them if they were interested in trading one of their existing PTO days for a day with us, and we pay them for a day as a 1099 contractor. And it was fascinating to us to find out that within about 2 or 3 hours, particularly when I wasn't around necessarily as the big boss man, and that was always intentional, the timing. By the time lunch rolled around, we had a really great sense of how they did with customers because they were working tickets with our existing people, and it was fast to figure out how good they were at it. So that was our because you could tell their bond with the rest of the team, who they like communicating with, and I tell you, it stunned me the things people would say during that one day.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome.
So I think we've drank all of our coffee here, Colin, and I think we've got the questions. We got a great question there, so I appreciate everybody's time. We have another one of these coming up, don't we?
We absolutely do. So Coffee Break Session 2 in the Coffee Break series is coming up on October 17th. So make sure you watch out and sign up for that one. You know, October, very, very popular month, very month that's near and dear to me, is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So we're going to be hitting in on a lot of things: cyber hygiene, hacking, talking about hacks, how to avoid them, and how overall to maintain a high level of cyber hygiene within your organization and for your clients as well. So please stay tuned, sign up for that one, and looking forward to keeping up this series of educational webinars for you guys.
Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. I think Colin and I are going to go refill our coffee cups, and we look forward to talking to you on the next of these Coffee Break series.
Thanks, everyone.